What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us here at Chad's Media, here for another game recap. Tyler, we just played Texas High with a big win, 74-48. That was really crucial after a road loss like that. How are you feeling about tonight?
It was. You and I talked, I don't remember if it was in the pregame or if it was just kind of off air, but we had talked about, like you said, coming off a loss. And, even more than the recent loss, you had the close game against Longview and then the loss to Hallsville as well. You and I had talked about how this was a huge game. Not only did you need to win, but you needed to win big. And that's exactly what they did. And I'm feeling really good.
Yeah, that was big. And, each district game is always so important, especially when you lose two. Now the district race starts getting tighter and tighter, especially after Hallsville losing to Longview. Mount Pleasant has a loss against Texas High, and they're playing tonight. Mount Pleasant and Hallsville. So the district race is super tight now, and we don't know the outcome of that game yet.
Right. For anybody watching, obviously this will air on Saturday, but we're recording this late Friday night, so we don't know the outcome of that game yet. But
it was a huge win, especially to get momentum going for the second half of district, because that can get very draggy and tiresome at this point in the season. But they were able to stick to their game plan. Justin Hare mentioned that, man, they really put an emphasis on preparation for this game, and that was huge. We could tell that tonight.
Absolutely. And something you're mentioning as far as this district race goes, if anybody watched our first game recap, you heard us talk about this a little bit, but you're a former player. You went through this yourself. I mean, the district race, I know we talk about it and its importance and everything, but I don't think we can stress enough exactly how important it is because it changes your entire playoff road.
Yeah, if you can win district, the road to state gets – I would like to see a percentage on how much easier it gets, because you won't have to see a really good team, hopefully until third round usually. And, the year we went to state, we won district. We didn't have to see a very, very good team until regionals,
right.
Which is big. But then my senior year, we get second. We have to see the number one team in the state third round. So it is big to try to get a district championship.
Absolutely. Now, you asked how I felt coming into this game. How did you feel coming into the game?
I thought we would come in like we did. I did think that, I knew our guys knew the importance of coming and playing their hearts out and coming out with a big win. After a tough road loss and then you come straight home. I think that is, it gives players energy and motivation to get a win. So it being a Friday night, players love playing Friday nights at home. So I did feel good about it. And, they executed like I thought so.
Now, I have to mention, you mentioned players love playing at home on a Friday night. The crowd was definitely there tonight. It was a packed house. It wasn't necessarily a rowdy crowd or anything, but it was packed. And we saw something from the student section. They had that entire section filled up, and they were standing up the entire game from the very beginning. I mean, it felt like the energy was there.
Yeah, that shocked me, especially when games start to be a blowout. Like, the student section is usually non-existent. And even then, after halftime, it was a 20-point game, student section immediately stands up. So that is big. Players feed off their energy. They feed off their excitement and their existence there. So I was really impressed by that.
Now, I want to take it from the very beginning of the game. It started off a little bit slower than I would have thought. You talk about, the energy needing to be there. It is a Friday night. You have the crowd. You're coming off a loss. But they kind of started a little bit slow. Yeah,
the intensity, it did feel a little off. And, there wasn't much scoring on either side. There were a lot of open shots. Like we mentioned, Justin Hare went scoreless in that first quarter, which rarely happens. Usually he gets on the board pretty early. But it was a very low-scoring game. But that second quarter, they really turned it around. And then the second half, again, Silver Springs has been pretty good at this all year, of really turning up their intensity on the defensive end with guys like Malachi Miles, Parker Woods and Hunt, Justin Hare. Those guys up the intensity, get transition points. So, towards the second half, the intensity started increasing. But it was odd that it did start off a little sluggish. But sometimes that happens at this point in the season.
Oh, for sure. And something I want to give credit to both Coach Shaver and his team for, if you listen to our broadcast, if you watch our game recaps, we mention this a lot, but one of Coach Shaver's biggest mottos or, mentalities is the first 3 minutes, coming out the first 3 minutes of the game, first 3 minutes of the second half. And like we said, the energy wasn't necessarily there, but they were able to adjust. They were able to, bounce back from that. And I think it would have been really easy, especially things haven't necessarily been going your way lately. You don't get off to the start you want to. I mean, it would have been pretty easy for them to get down,
Yeah, and that's what a lot of high school teams struggle with is once they lose, and I've been on teams like this too in tournaments where we lose one game and the rest of the tournament it's just downhill and you get on this downhill slope and it's hard to get back up from that, especially when you're, a ranked team like Silver Springs. They were top 15 in the state, and you're probably going to get knocked out of the rankings because of that Mount Pleasant loss. So a lot of times that can defeat players, but tonight they chose the opposite route and decided to make it a blowout. We'll say tonight we had a few really standout players tonight. One being Branson Land, who had 18 points, shot 3 for 8 from 3, which is big for him. He's been struggling from the three-point line tonight. But,
yeah, I believe only like a 28% three-point shooter, something
right.
in that range.
So he's able to knock down some shots. He 5 for 5 from the free throw line. He had a great game.
Oh, absolutely. It's like you mentioned, kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start from the three-point line, and I had interviewed him earlier in the year, and he had made a comment, my three-point shot isn't falling the way I wanted it to, so he has started scoring in other ways. He gets to the goal. He creates opportunities for other people, and this was a night, 3 for 8 from 3, so that was a pretty good night, but he's still doing the other things. He's still shooting really well from the free throw line, 4 rebounds. He's just contributing in so many different areas right now.
He is, and the one thing that I love about him so much is as a junior, it's his first year on varsity, he never loses confidence. He started off the game shooting, I believe, 1 for 5 from 3. And a lot of players that when they're missing threes like that, they start to get down on themselves. They start passing up open shots. Branson doesn't pass up open shots, in which he puts in the work that he's allowed to take those open shots. And one thing I love about him is, we talked about this, I always say he's the player I wanted to be, because when he's not hitting those threes, he's able to create for others. He's able to get to the rim. His pick and roll ball handling skills is amazing at controlling his pace, reading it perfectly. Overall, man, he had a great game.
Absolutely, and he's been really good lately as well. I believe the Longview game he was shooting well, or the Mount Pleasant game. I mean, here lately he has been playing really well here.
He has been. We also had Cordic Turner, who was one of my key players tonight, because I wanted him to really take advantage of his size, because he's arguably the most unguardable player on this team, because he gets guys to where he wants to by backing them down, and he's able to finish those hook shots. He had 12 points and 6 rebounds, and we said that if it would have been a closer game and would have been, him playing more, we easily could have seen a 15 and 9 night.
Off the top of my head, I mean,
night.
he didn't really get a ton of minutes in that second half. Like you said, they were up a lot. They brought Bull in for him. Bull got into some foul trouble, so they did bring him back, but then he only played a few more minutes and came out. For anyone that didn't get to catch our broadcast of the game, which if you didn't, by the way, you can go back and watch that on the Chad's Media YouTube channel. But we had mentioned a lot, like you said, Texas High, they just didn't have the size that Sulphur Springs did. So we knew coming into it, he was going to have a lot of mismatches. Yep. He was going to have a lot of opportunities. And even though 12.6 rebounds doesn't necessarily sound like this huge game, like you said, there would have been more minutes. It probably would have been. And I think, Cordric's a player that you and I talk about a lot just because we love his style of play. But I thought this was one of the best games we've seen from him.
He looked good. When we talked about him he was very patient when he caught the ball in the post. He wasn't immediately making a move. He looked around for cutters. He would hit them a few times, which is my favorite thing from a post, to be able to look at the other options first and then decide what you're going to do. I will say Caleb Alexander had 9 points, shot 2 for 4 from 3. The one thing about Caleb's shooting now over 45% from 3 for the year, which is incredible. I do think he's got to get more shots. I think
agree.
We need to run as he did a great job at bringing the ball up, handling the ball, running the offense, facilitating. But man, when he shoots, he's the one player, when he shoots the ball, I think it's going in every time.
Every single time. And I think One, I think a huge reason why that was the case. Anytime both he and Branson were on the floor together, it felt like you said, the ball was in his hands. He was kind of the one setting up and running the offense, and that very well could have been the case. Branson leads the team with 18 points, so maybe they want him off the ball. They want him, people setting screens for him and him getting open shots. Right. That very well could have been the case, but for me, Caleb, coming off of that game at Mount Pleasant, he led the team in scoring. It was either 16 or 18 points. He was shooting lights out from the field, also scoring inside. I was really hoping to see him get a lot more opportunities this game. You feed off of that, come into this game, and get more chances. I agree with you. He was good with the chances he did get. And, again, he was excellent with the ball in his hands. I don't know, you may have said already 4 assists.
Yeah.
I have zero problem with the way he was used in that sense because he did a great job around the offense. I just wish, like you said, he could have got more opportunities.
Right. Going into the fourth quarter, he had only shot 1 3. And it's not that he's afraid to shoot it, because he's not. And he showed that tonight. He had a step back. He shoots deep threes all the time. So I think that a player like him that can shoot as well as him should not finish a game of 4 threes, but should be going into the fourth quarter with at least four 3-point attempts. And so I think if I'm Shaver, I want to start running more actions to Caleb, because he's been hot all year. He doesn't miss many shots. It always looks good. His confidence is through the roof. So I do think that, man, he needs to get the ball.
In a situation like that where Branson is scoring and shooting well, but you want to get Caleb opportunities as well, something we really haven't seen, but we could let, not necessarily in transition, but once you've gotten into the half court, things are set up, you could let someone like Grayson or Parker be the one with the ball, because they're good passers as well,
Yeah, or even get Parker in the ball, or let one of them bring it up and then have Justin catch it in the middle or something, or start running guard-on-guard ball screens where they some pick and pops.
And to your point about someone like Justin, we've mentioned 1,000 times, we'll mention it 1,000 more. Both Justin and Cordrick, great passers for bigs. You may have said this, Cordrick had 3 assists tonight.
He did, yeah, and that was, a point we brought up is how great he was at passing to those cutters. And Justin Hare, again, he's the same way. He's always being able to find, when he gets double teamed a lot, and he's able to find those other guys. And even tonight, scoring, he had 8 points, 8 rebounds. He had a few points there at the end. So scoring wasn't in, his bag tonight really, but defensively, 2 steals, 3 blocks. Tons of deflections, it seems like, constantly tipping to his teammates for the rebounds. A player like him is so good to have because he doesn't have to score. Whereas a lot of high school star players, if they're not scoring, then it's probably not a win. But Justin doesn't have to score for there to be a 30-point win. Right.
What's funny is one of the last times I talked to him, I believe it was after the Longview win, he word for word said, I like to think of myself as not a scorer. I score when the opportunities are there, but a lot of my points come off of offensive rebounds. They come just, when the shots are there. He word for word said, I like to think of myself as someone, I don't like to think of myself as a scorer.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, he has tons of nights this year where, it's only 8 points, but it's also 8 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals. I love seeing that kind of game from him, especially at home. He's a senior, and I think it would be really easy as a senior, to be like, no, I'm the one that needs to get my shots up. And I've never once seen him have that kind of mentality.
Yeah, and even when he does miss shots, when the shots aren't going in the basket like the way he wants it to, he may for a second, clap his hands real quick, but he runs right back on defense and plays hard. 2 more players we want to shout out, I believe Parker Wisenhunt and Malachi Miles. Parker Wisenhunt, again, a transition king tonight. I mean,
always.
Major dunks, great finishes, great deflections. That's what he does.
3 dunks, I believe, but 2 of them were huge. And Parker gets at least 2 to 3 dunks a game, and a lot of them are huge. So it's really easy to get to the point where you're almost like, jaded towards. Oh, yeah, there's another huge dunk from Parker. But one of them, or really both of them, even you and I were very impressed, very amazed. They were huge.
Yeah, big dunks. And it's crazy with him because, you've talked to him. I played with him throughout the years. He's so humble. He doesn't get into his head. Now, he does want those dunks. You can see when he's wanting, but he knows what that does for the team. He told me it really gives them momentum and energy, and it did. The crowd started getting into it.
The crowd does,
the team
the
started
bench does,
into
the players on the floor.
Yeah, so those were, but he ended up with 12 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists.
One of those I want to point out, if you don't mind, it was a huge play. It was really late in the first half, within the last minute of the first half, I believe, but he blocks a shot. So a player from T-High went to shoot a three. And the reason why I want to point all this out is because, and we give him a lot of credit and a lot of praise for it, and we'll continue to do so. He's such a good defensive player. It's usually steals. He's usually picking off passes or even, on ball getting steals. But this time, a huge block. He gets his own rebound, and it was a really tough situation. He's right by the sideline. He kind of catches it with the ref and the sideline right here. He kind of tossed it over the ref, caught it, and went down and threw a huge dunk down. Again, I think that's right before the end of the first half.
It was, yeah. That was big going into the half, especially because there wasn't much energy going into that. And then Malachi Miles, one of our favorite players.
Yes.
6 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. We talk about this. The stat sheet isn't ever that friendly to him.
Right.
But if you watch Malachi, and people who know basketball and people who love watching basketball, Malachi Miles is – To me, he's the most important bench player in the district, and here's why.
Oh, I agree.
And he's not even technically the sixth man. Caleb's probably
technically
sixth man.
Caleb and or Grayson, because usually the lineup rotates a little bit, but it's always either one of those two.
Yeah, and Malachi being able to come off the bench, his defense is incredible. He's always pressuring at half court. He fights for offensive rebounds. And even if he doesn't grab them, he's threatening the defense that he is a threat to grab offensive rebounds.
Right, despite being usually the smallest guy on the floor.
Yeah, he's usually the smallest guy on the court. He's able to grab offensive rebounds. I think he averages about 3 rebounds a game.
Yep.
Half of those coming from offensive rebounds.
And despite that not being a ton of minutes played. Sometimes it's only we don't have the stats right in front of us, but it's probably 10, 12 minutes a game, maybe not even.
Now tonight he did get to play a lot, and I think Shaver recognized how hard he plays constantly. He doesn't ever make many mistakes. He's such a good glue guy to have, and we mentioned that his points are tough points.
Tough points.
They're always him using his body against bigger defenders, and he's still able to finish over those guys.
There was a specific instance tonight. It was in the first half. It was a very quick play. Sulphur Springs had gotten a rebound. They got it out to Caleb as the outlet man, who then gets it to Malachi. And the numbers weren't on his side. I believe he had 2 or 3 defenders on him, but he goes up both strong and with finesse, and he gets an amazing layup off, like you said, a very, very tough point. My favorite thing about Malachi, and it was very much true tonight, is how efficient he is. He's a player. We mentioned this a lot with someone like Grayson Arrington. He'll get 6 or 8 points, but that was on 3 or 4 shots. At most, he's missing 1 shot. The shots he does take, he tends to make them. I believe on the year, coming into tonight's game, he was shooting like 65% from the field, and it probably even went up tonight.
Right, yeah. And Grayson Arrington's him and Malachi, the same reasons we praise Grayson are really the same reasons we praise Malachi. They're just 2 different type of players, because one's a guard, one's more of a forward. They're both very similar, and we said during the broadcast, Malachi is a player every coach wants to have, because he doesn't do much wrong. He can handle the ball pretty well. He runs the offense right. He's at the right spot at all times on defense.
The last point real quick I do want to make about Malachi, and this is something that applies to Grayson as well in general. We talk about the plus-minus stat, which, again, if you don't know what plus-minus is, it's literally the point differential when you're on the floor. So if you're a 0.6, that means the team outscored the other team by 6 points while you were on the floor. I don't know what his plus-minus was tonight, but I think it's going to be really, really high, because the one thing that stuck out to me a lot, pretty much all of these stats, or a lot of these stats, came into the first quarter, going into the second quarter, when they really start to make their run, they really start to create separation. That big run that happened there, he was a big part of that.
Yeah, for sure. And those little guys, those guys that don't really get many stats or whatever, they're usually, if not the biggest factor in these big runs that cause the lead to stretch, and there's no coming back from that.
Right, because outside of Justin, this year as a whole, Grayson has the second highest plus-minus. That's the kind of player we're talking about.
Yeah. So
speaking of, do you want to run through his stats really quickly?
Yeah, Grayson Arrington ended up with 5 points and 2 assists. Again, 2 for 2 from the line, knocked down a 3. Doesn't
also
shoot many threes, and he did have a steal. And he did what he does every night. He doesn't do much wrong. Didn't play as much tonight. But again, I think Shaver realized Malachi was just playing very, very well.
Yeah, that was kind of a combination of Malachi was playing really well in that moment, and then once you get to the second half, they have like an entire bench unit in,
Yeah,
so he just kind of
absolutely.
never got the chance to get the minutes he probably would have gotten in a closer game.
Absolutely. So again, a big win for Silver Springs tonight, 74-48. I believe their next home game is Friday.
Yes,
correct?
I believe that's correct. Very quickly, if you don't mind, let's run through. There were a ton of guys who got minutes tonight that we don't always see getting minutes. Guys like Bull Turner, Jaquan Jones, Jermaine Cleveland, Cole Theophilides. I think it was great because you have had so many close games here lately that unfortunately guys like that haven't been able to get minutes. And as Coach Shaver has mentioned, as you and I have mentioned, you never know once district rolls around, there could be a player that's injured or a player that can't play tonight, a player that gets in foul trouble. For whatever reason, you might need to rely on these guys.
Yeah, and it's good to get those guys. He got them in early too. It's always good to have those guys in motion because, like I said, playoff time, there's always a lot of foul troubles in playoff games. So they gotta be aware of the intensity, the speed. So it's always good to get those guys in, and they always look extremely happy to be out there. I love watching a lot of those guys like Bull. Jaquan's super fun to watch. They just bring a lot of energy. Yeah.
Speaking of, you had mentioned foul trouble and some things like that. I think we've said about as much as we can about this specific game. If you don't mind, I would like to talk about the team the team general, both what we've seen from them recently and what you hope to see from them moving forward. Foul trouble is a thing that we've seen them being a lot lately. In that Hallsville game, unfortunately, I believe, Parker, Justin, and Branson, all three had either 4 fouls going into that fourth quarter. I believe one of them, maybe Branson, fouled out. And then kind of the same thing was happening in the Mount Pleasant game. We see Cordrick get into some foul trouble. How do you think a team avoids that moving forward? Because, like you said, these district games, playoff games, they are tough. You are playing a very physical game.
Yeah, well, sometimes, foul trouble, it's hard to stay away from because at the same time, you want your guys to play intense defense. And we do pressure the ball a lot. So guards are going to naturally foul. Depending on the ref might be like more physicality. Some don't. Tonight, they really didn't like the physicality, but there's some refs that they don't mind it. They'll let you keep playing. I prefer those refs. I like watching it. I like playing in that better.
I'm the same way. I'm with you on that.
But so sometimes it's unavoidable. But if guys like Justin, going straight up, making sure if you want to take a charge, you're in front of them, they're not hitting your side, things like that. I think that's just a game by game basis and staying solid, not reaching in. Because at times we like to reach around, just staying true to your defense and to what Coach Saber has taught these guys.
2 last quick things I want to get to, and then anything that you have, feel free to throw it at me. But I want to praise them for a couple of things very quickly. Unfortunately, we've seen this team struggle with free throw shooting, and I thought they shot very, very well from the free throw line tonight. That's something that I think if they can continue to do that moving forward, that will be huge. Yeah,
in the free throw game, it's huge. A lot of times in playoff games, whoever wins the free throw game will win sometimes, especially in those close games. So being able to start knocking down free throws.
I believe they made 9 of their first 10.
Yeah, 9 of their first 10. Having guys like Branson Lynn and when he's at the free throw line, he's probably going to knock it down. That's big for them.
Absolutely. Real quick, we can run through it. It ends up being, what is this, 5 for 5, 2? They end up missing 2 or 3 for the whole night. It looks like only missed 2 free throws, 3 free throws. So, they did great from the free throw line tonight. The last thing that I, again, want to praise them on, and then anything you have, I'm going to throw it to you. We have mentioned there have been times where they have the game, but unfortunately have struggled finishing, especially like the Mount Pleasant one. You're up by 14 going into that fourth quarter. You're up by 4 with a minute left. We talked about coming into tonight's game. There's a really strong chance you will find yourself up by double digits, and they need to keep their foot on the gas and finish strong, and they did an incredible job of that tonight.
They did, and that is super. You can't relax. There's never a time to really relax until the buzzer ends, and you see that against Mount Pleasant. Especially in the playoffs. Playoff games, anything can happen. So, it is crucial to be able to stay locked in and stay solid at those clutch times because when it comes to playoff time, most of those games, if not all of your games, will be tight, close games and big battles. And I'm hoping, our guys can start that. We got those 2 losses out of the way, and then we work on our mistakes on those, and then we improve, and we get better from there.
Absolutely. For anyone that doesn't know the schedule moving forward, I'll throw all of it out there really quickly, but we will focus on just the next couple times between now and when the audience will see us again. You have this coming Tuesday at Marshall. Then you're at home for Pine Tree, at Hallsville, home for Longview and Mount Pleasant, at T-High. So you're at the halfway point in the district schedule. Like we mentioned, you're 3-2, 4-2. Let's look at this next week really quickly because, of course, for anyone that doesn't know, Grace and I, we only live broadcast the home games and do the recaps for the home games. So what is it? At Marshall on Tuesday, and then you're home for Pine Tree next Friday.
Yeah, so the big thing is with those games, they weren't very close games at all. We can't let that get in our head. We can't let our ego beat us, really. Go in and do the same thing that you did last time that you did when you played them. Going in the second half of district, it's forget what happened the first half. Let's focus game by game. Don't worry about Hallsville. Don't worry about Longview. Don't worry about Mount Pleasant again. Focus game by game. Prepare for each game that day, not
Absolutely.
the next.
In your opinion, as someone who was on this team not long ago, you obviously had a lot of success. We have seen them struggle a little bit here lately at getting off to a slow start. How do you change that? Is it literally just a mentality thing? Is it just, from the time we hit the floor in warm-ups, I'm going to be ready? I mean, how do you
I think
that?
we need to – our warm-ups, I think we need to show some more intensity, show some more excitement because, if you're excited during warm-ups, there's no telling how excited you're going to be when the ref throws the ball up for the first time.
Right.
So I do think just show some more excitement, some more intensity, and then start going because when you start off with a bang, it's tough for teams to recover emotionally from that. So
I do have to ask something we had alluded to a little bit earlier. There is a good chance, of course, we don't know. We're recording this Friday night. The rankings won't come out until Monday. There is a strong chance that you do fall out of the rankings, and you've been as high as 14, I believe. As a player, how do you not let that affect your play?
Well, at the end of the day, you got to realize rankings don't matter. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is who holds up a state trophy. Being ranked 1 or 3 or 5, it really means nothing. It's just for your ego at the end of the day, especially with high school basketball.
Is that something that, as a player, obviously I don't want you to have to speak on behalf of the current guys, but are you looking at that kind of thing, or do you not even pay attention to it?
It's hard not to look at your high school. You want to be ranked, obviously. It is a testament to how well you play, but at the end of the day, it's not the end-all, be-all. You're fighting for district. Then you're fighting for round 1 of the playoffs, fighting for round 2. You're not fighting to be number 1 ranked team in the state because at the end of the day, there's been year after year number 1 teams, number 2 teams, number 3 teams getting knocked out second round, third round. So at the end of the day, ranking should not mean anything at this point.
I agree. Moving forward this next week, I think, like you said, you're at Marshall on Tuesday, and then you're home again Friday for Pine Tree. I think this is an opportunity for you to really get some momentum. Let's, go out there and pick up more 10, 15, 20-point wins. You've beat them in that fashion already. I think you can do it again, and I think that would be huge getting back to that part of the schedule that you've, struggled with against Hallsville and Longview and Pine Tree, or Mount Pleasant, rather.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see how they can respond going into this half of district. Like I said, it can get tiresome, but I do believe that these guys have their head on straight and they'll come prepared night in and night out.
Absolutely. So as we've mentioned, we will see y'all again as far as the live broadcast goes. You can catch Grayson and I next Friday night against Pine Tree. Yep. And of course, the games are set to start at 7:30 p.m. We start, our broadcast just a few minutes before the game gets started. So that'll be right here on the Chad's Media YouTube channel. Until then, there's plenty of content that they can check out from us, though.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, tonight,
later today. Yeah, later this evening tonight.
The highlight video will be out. We're trying to experiment with some new things. And Corey Hankins at Chad's Media has been doing an incredible job.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember when he first started, you could see the difference. You could see the difference when he first started and now. His
videos here lately have been amazing. And like you said, we are going to try some new stuff. For those of you that check out our post-game interviews and everything, both you and I have been doing that lately. And rather than being a separate video, that's all going to be, you can find that all in one place. So I can't wait for y'all to check that out. Other things that we have going on here on Chad's Media, a new episode of The Tyler Lennon Show just released this week. It was with Dr. Juan Harrison. That was amazing. If you haven't gotten the chance to yet, please go check that out. We have more episodes this month coming out. Ty Rollison, Caleb Price, Keenan Clayton. I know y'all are going to want to check those out. Until then, I guess we will see y'all next Friday night. Sulphur Springs Wildcats against Pine Tree.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. And until next time, see y'all then.